Hey everyone, in this tutorial, I set out to make a minimal drum and bass drop using Repro, Hive 2, and Diva from u-he, which are currently on sale in FL Studio. You'll find the link in the description. Every sound you just heard comes from these free synths, but in this video, I'm going to focus on how I created the main lead, plug bass, and lush atmosphere. Let's start with the main lead sound, which I made in Repro 5. I wanted to make a lead that sounds fat yet simple, with analog warmth and a slight dirtiness to it. Repro felt like a natural choice since it's modeled after analog hardware synthesizers. Let's start with the initialized preset and focus on shaping the tone first. In every synth from u-he, you can load an initialized preset by right-clicking on the display panel, effectively setting the synth to default. I change oscillator's A shape to square and oscillator B to triangle. Then I set the noise to about 35 to add more grit and give the sound that analog character. Every time you tweak a parameter, you can see its exact value in the top field of the synth, where the preset name is usually displayed. I felt like the sound was too static, so I detuned the oscillator B very slightly. Cool, I'm happy with the core sound, but let's add some effects to it. For even more grit, I enabled distortion and changed the setting to corrode. I also cranked crush to 70 to add more distortion. To give the sound more space and width, I added drench and lyrebird and tweaked the settings to my liking. Lastly, to glue everything together, I added velvet with the tape heavy setting. Let me show you how I made this plug bass using Diva. There are two parts to this sound, the tone and the filtering. Let's start with shaping the tone. I loaded triple VCO for the oscillator module, which gives me access to free oscillators, feedback, and noise, all essential to this sound. I set oscillators 1 and 2 to square, and oscillator 3 to pulse. Next, let's tackle the oscillator octaves. You can change octaves using the range knobs. Oscillator 1 range is set to 16. Oscillator 2 range is set to 4, which is 2 octaves higher than oscillator 1. And oscillator 3 range is set to 2, making it 3 octaves higher than oscillator 1. Next, I balanced the oscillator volumes, as it felt like oscillator 2 is dominating the overall sound. Oscillators 1 and 3 are set to 100, while oscillator 2 is set to 60. I also tweaked the noise to 30 and feedback to 35 to further shape the sound and add some richness and dirt. Adding noise is very common when making sounds either brighter, more vintage, or sometimes both simultaneously. Next, the filtering part. I used the cascade filter. I wanted to make this sound plucky, so I needed to modulate the filter with an envelope and set everything accordingly. I started by setting the cutoff and resonance to 0. I also set the ladder mode to 12 dB and color to clean to change the character of the filter. To link this filter to an envelope, I tweaked the envelope 2 knob to about 80. Next, let's adjust the envelopes and make the filter pluck. I'm using analog mode for the envelopes, as that mode gives me an access to a release slider. In the amplitude envelope, I set the attack to about 10, so the sound doesn't start with a click. Set the sustain all the way up, and added a little bit of release. These settings will make the volume of the sound sustained and add a little bit of a tail at the end. In the filter envelope, I set the attack to 0, decay to 40, sustain to 0, and release to 25. This creates the plucky filter movement. The lower the decay is, the shorter the pluck. I also created an automation clip for the filter cutoff by right-clicking the multi-link to controllers button to make the sound gradually open up over time. Lastly, I added a preset from the Diva factory content called HS Dirtbag to layer alongside the plug bass. Here's how these two sound together. For the lush atmosphere sound, I used Hive 2 to design it. There are 3 parts to this sound: the tone, movement, and the effects. Let's start with the tone. I enabled the second oscillator by clicking oscillator 2 in the filter section. Then I set oscillator 1 octave to 1 and oscillator 2 octave to 2 to have each oscillator play a different octave and achieve fuller sound that way. For a tiny bit of pitch warble, let's add some slight vibrato to oscillator 2. 15% sounded good to me. Besides traditional wave shapes, Hive 2 also comes with wavetables, which are very useful for creating more complex and evolving sounds. I set oscillator 2 to wavetable mode. Then I went into the harmonics folder and selected the free overtone series wavetable. This wavetable in particular has a lot of really nice harmonic frames that we could shift through. Think of frames as kinda like individual sounds that are all combined within one wavetable and smoothly morph into each other. I also set the wavetable position to about 50%. To add movement over time, I routed LFO2 to wavetable position. Then I went into the matrix and set the modulation depth to 50%. Great! Now we've got the tone and movement sorted. Now let's turn this screechy mess into a lush, ethereal pad. In the Hive 2 effects section, I added reverb, set the mix all the way up, and tweaked the rest of the parameters to taste. This will wash the sound and make it sound very ethereal and spacey. I also added a bit of delay and chorus to round everything out. I hope you enjoyed watching and learned something new. If you're interested in trying these synths yourself, don't forget to check out the offer through the link in the description. Let's hear all of the sounds in action once again.